Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast Season 2. We are back and better than ever, if I say so myself. But I am so excited to return to Season 2 of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. We are going to do things a little different this season. We're going to be releasing 2 episodes a week. So we'll drop an episode on Monday with an entrepreneur story for you to learn from, be inspired by, and best of all, create a connection with. And on Fridays, we'll release either a solo episode or an episode with a guest co-host who will happen to be a close friend of mine. And during that episode, we'll discuss a topic that relates to business that I've learned about or my friend has extensive experience with. Friday episodes will be more chill, maybe a little unstructured, maybe a little unprofessional, but still expect to have fun while you're learning something new. For the season 2 premiere, I have a very special guest. I'm honored to have the pleasure of sitting with not only the founder of clean beauty brand FOR TMRW, but a dear friend of mine, Maia Alejandro. Maia is the CEO and founder of FOR TMRW, a nail polish beauty brand that contributes to the celebration of ancestral beauty rituals, elevating Caribbean roots in the beauty space, and bringing safe, accessible beauty tools catered to women of color. FOR TMRW is an award-winning nail care brand by Allure Best of Beauty and has been featured in W Magazine, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, In Style, Refinery 29, Coveteur, The Zoe Report, Birdie, and BuzzFeed. My conversation with Maia illuminated for me how possibility can be a domino effect. When I see someone who I relate to doing something that they love to do, it reminds me that everyone, including myself, can do that as well. This episode was recorded in December 2023. Enjoy. Yeah, it feels like forever, especially because with Sean, we just had our anniversary, like our 8th year anniversary. So it's been
Mhm. Oh, so like
definitely,
8 years, yeah.
yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy, but I'm so excited. This is season 2, y'all. So we have new people, we have new brands, new businesses, new stories. And I'm excited to introduce to you all today Maia Alejandro. And Maia, I'll kick it over to you and I'll talk a little bit about how we know each other, but I'm gonna give you the mic.
Sure. So I'm Maya. I'm the founder of For Tomorrow. And we offer really beautiful nail care rooted in color psychology to uplift your mood.
Yes, and I wanna say I'm wearing one of my favorite colors right now. Yeah, so if you're
Your
watching this on
sundress.
YouTube, yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will say, Maya, you're the only nail polish I wear, like, for
I
real.
used to hear that. Yes.
Yeah, it's the only nail polish I wear because I love
Mhm.
the colors. I love how unique they are, and I don't go out and do my nails. I like to do them myself. Now, and honestly, I wish I could buy all of them. I, like, have to stop myself from buying, like, I have, like, 10 colors,
Right.
but, like, I'm like, "Oh, but I gotta, like, finish this one, I gotta use this one." So, yeah,
I know, and then it takes a while to get through them too, so
I
you get
know.
a lot of use out of them.
Yeah, I mean, even the first one that I ever bought from you when I was still in Brooklyn, I still have it, I think halfway. Um, so yeah, I'm
Okay.
always like I love doing my nails. I will do it maybe every 2 weeks. I will take off the nail polish and do another one and combine it or do something else. But
Mhm. Are
anyway,
you saying that it lasts 2 weeks?
yeah, it lasts like I mean,
Like,
this
ding.
I know, and even when it does like, even, like, when it starts to chip, like, I actually bought, the primer, the coat and stuff, and, like
Mhm.
and it lasted even longer, and then I was like, "Okay, I
A base
love it
coat.
when they start to chip because I can, like, do it all over again. Like
There's something so nice about just, like, painting, I think.
yeah, and then
For
doing different designs or whatever.
Yeah, that's so fun.
It's so
Mhm.
fun, but I do wanna just give a little bit of context for everybody because so Maya and I met, like I said, maybe almost 10 years ago.
Mhm.
8 I wanna say maybe 8, 9 years ago. We had some mutual friends, so, like, your husband was friends with my husband's friends, and so, like, all of them became friends, and then all of, like, us, the partners, like, the wives, and we became this, like, big group in New York, and I remember being so excited to learn that you were a social worker.
Oh. Oh my god, likewise. Yeah, I was like, "What do you mean you're a social worker?" Yeah.
I know, and so I wanna get a little bit into that. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about your background prior to embarking on this brand that you've started and, like, how you came to be an entrepreneur prior to starting this brand?
Yeah, so it was kind of a journey. Like, sometimes people and, in my head, I'm so visual, I have to, like, see it mapped out. It's like people think, like, your journey is, like, one straight line, and my journey was, like, all these swirls, all these squiggles, right? So, I was a social worker. I went to social work school right out of college and got a job right away, and I was clinical social worker in New York, for about 8 years, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
And I was really burnt out. I was really, not good at taking care of myself, right? And now looking back, I realized, like, I was like, "Wait, I was
Mhm.
so young." I was 24 years old when
Yeah.
I started, right? I had just turned 24, so barely 24. And now, they say, like, your brain's not even fully developed till you're 24. So I'm like full, like, brand new brain practically, like just a baby.
Yeah.
And dealing with some really, really deep, heavy things. Um, and I love the work that I did. Like, I created, I mean, it was like such a beautiful community of social workers and doctors. And I worked at Mount Sinai, and um, a community of just incredible patients that, like, wanted to do the work, and, like, mental health work, and do the work to maintain their health, right? Which was the main point of the work that I did. But and I don't know, this is gonna get really deep, but, like, I lost a lot of patients. A lot of my patients died.
Yeah.
I, as a 24-year-old, 25 for the next 8 years, was not a person who knew how to deal with something so intense, so deep, and that affected me so personally, right? And, like, when you're a social worker, like, you're supposed to have supervision and just, like, someone guiding you. And there were people that were there, but they were kind of, like, in and out in my career. So I didn't have, like,
Mm.
a steady mentor or anything like that that would call out, like, "Hey, you gotta do things for you." Like, this was an extra tough week, right?
Mm.
Like, it was, and I worked with teenagers,
Mm.
so uh, it's a different, every death is difficult, but, like, there's something really, like, gut-wrenching about losing someone who's 18 years old,
Yeah.
like, really 15 years old. Like, it takes a different toll. So anyway, it took a really deep, deep toll on my soul.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was even doing that, right? So it would show up for me in health, in my
Mm.
health. My
Mhm.
health deeply affected, quite a few times, during my time there. And then I realized, I still wanna do this work promoting health and mental wellness and stuff, but I want to do it kind of, uh, in a more fun way, and in a almost more detached way, to be honest.
Mm.
That I needed to take a step back and just say, "I need to take care of myself, my own mental health." So I transitioned to this job. So, for context, I work in HIV, treatment.
Mhm.
So a lot of the patients that died was from HIV and AIDS, that I had. And it was a beautiful experience, but I needed to kind of take that step away. And so I started working in HIV prevention. And
Wow.
I worked with this, like, super cool nonprofit, and I started doing, like, their social media and events and just doing, like, really grassroots HIV prevention, and I feel like
Mm.
we really don't talk about this kinda stuff anymore, so I was, like, really excited to get in there and do this kinda work, and then they lost all their funding.
Oh,
I
no.
was out of a job, and I was like, "Oh my goodness," so again, this is, like, my little, like, swirls of a journey,
Yeah.
and so, during that time that I worked at that nonprofit, I had started a blog because 'cause I'm, like, very creative, and I one of the things I loved about my time, when I worked at Sinai was this, kind of art therapy program that
Mm,
we did. So, I was, exploring my own, like, creativity and my own art, right?
mhm,
So I started this blog and I was like talking about like design, interior design, and things like that. When the other nonprofit closed, I was like, well, maybe now's a good time for me to pursue. Let me see if I can actually like pursue this career, because I was
yeah.
just really trying to find myself. I'm kind of
Mm,
my purpose in life. What am I supposed to be doing on this earth?
mhm,
How do I give back to people, but also like feed my soul. And I had this moment of just realizing how important beauty is in our life and how much that affects our mental health.
mm,
Having worked in a hospital for so long, hospitals are very, very depressing spaces for the staff and the people. So it just really I was just I think that's where my love of, like, interior design came out, where I was just like, "You can create these gorgeous spaces." It's important to create these gorgeous spaces. It's important for our well-being. So anyway, started this blog talking about design and art and things like that. This is, like, back in the day when it's like, Twitter, and here's
yeah,
my blog, you
yeah,
know? Um so, yeah, I used my blog to get my next job. I used it
mhm.
almost like as my portfolio, and it
Oh,
wasn't that I had even created anything. It was just, look, what I created was like a really nice social media presence
mhm,
and a curation of my like design aesthetic. And I
mm,
used that to get a job at a retail design store, and then I used that to get the next job, which was like my next step up, which was a kinda like a B2B for interior designers, a B2B show
mm,
for interior designers. So I did sales and eventually I did marketing there because again, like I used my blog to grow this social media presence. So I was really able to use that to leverage that to get the next job. But
yeah,
of course, as I'm switching from job to job, every time you switch a job like that, you're starting from the ground up.
yeah,
So you're starting from 0 and you're starting as, the most entry level person,
yeah,
which is not easy to do over and over again, and it's not easy for a person who, dedicated a lot of my time growing up to my education, right? Like,
yeah,
you have to have a master's degree to be a social worker, and, like, so I'm like, here I am with a master's degree, and I'm starting at an entry level job here again, and then I'm starting at another entry level job, and then I'm starting at another.
mhm,
So, yeah, so I end up at this showroom.
mhm,
It was fine. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to
yeah,
run a business, right? So this woman,
mm,
the owner of this showroom, she was very open about how she started her business and how to run the business, like the back end, how to work with vendors internationally, how to make sure that things arrive on time, how to ship. I mean, people don't even know like the detail that goes into receiving a product in the United States is like a thing. Like people, this is some people's full-time job. So, I learned all of that. All of this information that I thought was like, I don't need it." All of
yeah,
that informed my business now, right? Like,
yeah,
business, how to work with vendors, how to find vendors, all of that. How to create something that's just aesthetically beautiful and that people want.
yeah,
How to continue to grow and sell on social media. Like, that's where I was really able to do that. So at some point, I was kind of like, I want to do social media full time.
mm,
I want to work um, in marketing. I loved it. And I felt like there was a time even before that, let's say a year before that, I was like, okay, maybe I'll go back to school and I'll go to interior design school.
Mhm.
And I did. I took a couple classes and I was just kind of like, this is not for me.
Mhm.
I don't know that I want to be an interior designer. I think I actually do better as a person that works in marketing for these really beautiful, like, design companies.
Mhm.
So I quit my job
Yeah.
and again, and I pitched my boss to
Mhm.
hire me as a consultant, and she
Oh.
did. And she did.
Oh. Wow.
So she was my first, freelance client, and from
Okay.
there, I built a business. I mean, this is my first business before For Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't even talk about this, but, like, I had a business. I have it, so, like,
Yeah.
I still do this
Oh my
regularly.
gosh, Maya, like, I did not know this.
So he was my first client, and I got so many clients through her because she's very high end,
Yeah.
very well connected. She recommended me to everyone.
Mhm.
People hired me to manage their social media, so I was like the social media marketing person for all these high-end interior designers, showrooms, anywhere, like textile designers, like any person that kind of fit in that world.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just grown from there. And
Wow.
yeah, it keeps me on my toes, it keeps me creative. I mean, I really love it.
That's incredible. That's just incredible. I can't believe I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that you did interior design and you did a lot of creative work around interior design. I knew that, you freelanced
Mhm,
and received a lot of clients. But that is incredible that you were able to build a client base from a blog, like from your own creativity, and then be
mhm.
able to then get pitch your boss. I'm wondering, like, where did you get like that idea
The
of?
goal to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yes,
Where did I desperation and desperation. No, honestly, it
yeah,
was really, I was at a point where I was like, "Look, I'm not gonna continue to work in," um I was like a sales assistant, and I was doing the social media, and I was like, "Look, I'm going to go." Actually, what really happened is that my grandmother died, and
mm,
we're very incredibly, incredibly close,
yeah,
and after she died, I was like, "Wait a second, like, life is really short, right? Like, it feels like snap your fingers and life is over, but,
yeah,
um, it's also can be really long. Like, my grandmother was also, like, in her late 80s, right? So I'm like, "Am I gonna spend my whole life," it was like an awakening moment for me. "Am I gonna
mhm,
spend my whole life at a job where I'm like, but I'd rather be more creative. But I think I'd rather
mhm,
do this other thing," you know? And that was almost like the real push that was like, I'm gonna go after what I actually want to do. And at the end of the day, I know that I'm gonna land on my feet. I know
mm,
that I'm gonna be okay. And I'm gonna try this thing. I've done it before. I had already done it. You know what I mean? I'm
yeah,
like, I've already done it. I know that I can get a job and I know that I work hard, you know what I mean? Like,
mm,
and I'm a good employee, like, in my head, so I'm like, I know that I could do these things. I'm just gonna try. I'm
yeah,
just gonna try because the the other side of not trying is almost like wasting your life, and I don't wanna make it so dramatic, right? Like,
mhm,
it doesn't have to be that dramatic, but for me in that moment, that's what it felt like because
mhm,
I had experienced, like, this really deep loss.
yeah.
Again, the theme of loss, right? Like, it's kind of now as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing that that is my driving force.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's I don't know, there's something about that story that's really touching me. I mean, you've always like, you really are an inspiration to me, Maya. Like, I always just
thank
love
you. Oh my god,
just
you're so sweet.
no, every since you started, For Tomorrow and, like, just I remember, uh I remember when I told you, like, Maya, I think I want to start a coaching business. And you're like, oh my gosh, girl, do
No,
it. Here's like, it take the, this is what I did and I did it. And I was like, oh man. And so I felt really motivated to do this, to do something different. Right. And I knew you were going through some tough times and loss. And I think that those are moments in our lives where we really start to reevaluate everything that is like
absolutely.
happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always wonder to myself, kind of like, why does it have to take that level of kind of like transformation in your daily life to cause this other, it's like a ripple effect, right? And it
Yeah.
makes sense, right? Like you have one major change and that causes another major change. But sometimes I wish that it didn't have to be so dramatic every time, or like it didn't have to be so almost painful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I
Go
do.
after the thing that I love because it's like it's not that it was this new concept,
Yeah.
right? It was just kind of like that push that was like, I'm gonna go do this thing now. Now I'm really
Yeah.
thing.
No, for real. And why do we need to get to that place of like pain to start thinking about that, right? And start thinking about, well, what
Exactly.
do I want? And I think that's why I really just enjoy watching you and watching your growth and your journey, because it almost gives me permission, to be like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I can pursue things that I want to pursue,
I love to hear that. Thank you for telling me that because I really that is what I want from sharing my story with
Yeah.
people, even before like for tomorrow, like because I had pivoted so many times. I have had this conversation with my best friend actually, where
Yeah.
I told her, I'm like, look, you don't have to do this if you don't want to for
Mhm.
something very serious in her life. I'm like, you don't have to continue. You can do whatever you want. And I think that that's the part that we don't realize.
Mhm.
Like, we're like, okay, we almost like create these boxes for ourselves, and it's like, oh, we have to do this thing because I went to school for this and I said I was gonna do this 10 years ago, right? Like
Mhm.
we're always growing, we're always changing. Like you have to allow yourself to not to be super corny, but like you have to allow yourself to blossom and
Yeah.
grow, like and be who you are and like really like transform like that butterfly, right? Like
Mhm.
transform into who you are meant to be because I look back at myself and I'm like, there's so many different versions of me. You know what I mean? Like even
Mhm.
the version of me that's a mother now, like that has completely transformed everything in my life, every relationship that I have,
Yeah.
um, the way that I work, the way that I think, everything has changed since that. So like we have to allow ourselves permission, like what you said, to just explore.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
totally okay to explore. And to be honest, I've thought about this too. Like as a child of an immigrant mother, like I was not allowed to explore, right?
Mm.
I was not allowed to explore my creativity because what kind of job are you gonna get with that?
Mm.
Uh, I was not allowed to explore just myself or anything that sounded frivolous or
Mm.
like any kind of career that wasn't like a serious career.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So I've also had to come to terms with that, where it's like, yo, I went to school for this thing. I did all the right things, quote unquote, first generation kid. I'm the oldest. There's a lot of pressure to do everything right and to make those sacrifices worth it for our family. But I've had to do things for me too, right? Like I got to a point where I was like, I need to explore for me. I
Yeah.
need to um really lean into who I am in my core, right? Like my like inner child, like however
Mhm.
about for me, for my survival, for my soul, for my happiness, right? And then also for like my the happiness of my kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That actually depends on them having a happy parent,
Mhm. I
happy
love
parent.
that. Yeah. No, I love that so much because, like you said, growing up, there is that urge to explore, to figure out like what do we want, what do we love, what what feels good to us. And like I totally resonate with this idea that, oh, but I don't have time for that. I have to get a good job, I have to get a good career, I have to go to a good school, I have to make my parents proud, and that trumps all the exploration and all of the creativity and curiosity that I feel like we don't get to, like, swim in, you
Yeah.
know?
The joy.
The
Joy.
joy,
It's
yeah,
the joy. It's the
and
joy. Yeah, like, that's what it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
it's joy, yeah, and I feel like you don't you almost don't think about it until you see, for me, like, you were an example for me where it's like, "Oh, man, so we can explore completely, vastly different things that have nothing to do with, like, the career that we chose, and it's okay, and we're gonna be okay, and we're gonna, like, if as long as there's, like, support around us, that we're gonna figure it out, even if we end up figuring out that that's not what we want, but we had the opportunity to explore
Exactly.
that,
Exactly.
I remember you sending surveys out, like, "What colors feel good to you? What
Mhm.
colors feel joyous?" I was like, "Oh, this is so cool," and it, like, planted a seed in me, "Oh, like, it's possible," like, it's possible. I think as when people see that and know your background, right, know how you grew up and what happened and sort of what brought you to this place of, like, life is short, let's explore, you know? I hope that nobody goes through loss and pain to get to that point,
Right,
right?
right, of course. That was my journey, right? And I always also tell people, like, this is my journey, and all I can do is just tell you, like, the things that I experienced and how that informed the decisions that I had to make. And it didn't make it easy either, right? Like, I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, Imma do this thing." I was still terrified.
Mhm.
Like, I
Yeah.
wasn't like, "Whoa, this is so much fun." Like, it's still
Yeah.
terrifying. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's still tons of imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
Right? Every time you have to and it happened a couple times because it's like every new job that I had, especially when I was younger, like, was in a completely different field.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, now I'm doing even, now I'm doing HIV prevention. I have not worked on this side before, so I really have to learn how it's done and how to speak to a completely different population,
Yeah.
right? Like, because every audience requires different work.
Yeah.
Or then, working at the showroom, that's completely I remember my first day at the showroom,
Mhm.
my boss gave me a calculator, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" Like a physical calculator. I was like,
Yeah.
"First of all, I haven't seen these since, like, physics in high school,
Yeah.
okay?"
Yeah.
And, I was and I was like, "Can I just use the
Oh.
calculator on my phone? Like, why are you
Yeah.
giving what year is it?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it was like, "Oh my god," like, I have to do hardcore equations, like,
Oh.
hardcore I mean, because design is also requires a lot of math.
Oh.
So, which is also why I was like, "Maybe this isn't for me." I don't
Girl,
like
I
math.
would've been out of there so fast and be like, I don't
Like, I don't want I don't hate math, actually, but, like, I was like, I don't want to use a calculator every day." Like, just,
Yeah.
like, those little things that just you're just like, "Whoa," it's like a shock, like, "Okay, you actually don't know this, and you really do have to learn a new skill set."
Mhm.
It's not easy, so I definitely, like, props to whoever really takes that leap because it's tough and you don't always have support from your community and your family and things like that those kinds of things can really eat away at you. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily my partner is super supportive and
Yeah.
has been. I've been with him. He's seen I was a social worker when I met
Yeah.
him, you know?
Yeah.
So he has been super supportive, and now I encourage him. I'm like, "You can do whatever you wanna do." I'm like, "You can do it."
I love
Um,
it. I love
yeah.
it. Yeah. I mean, just in general, I know you have so many roles, so many different hats that you wear, became a mom. You're a mom of twins,
It's crazy here.
which is wild. It's so wild. Now that you're a mom of twins, you're a
Yeah.
wife, as you continue to grow your business and as you continue to also do the freelance work that you
Mhm.
do, balance that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything else that you have going on.
Um it's not easy, and I'm not gonna say that I'm balanced, to be honest. I think I strive for balance, but I don't necessarily feel like I find it. My kids always come first.
Yeah.
Does not matter what is due, what is going like, if they come first. So, their schedule comes first. I literally my work schedule revolves around their schedule. That's how
Mhm.
it's been since they were babies.
Yeah.
If they're awake, then I'm with them, and that's what it is, and especially in the early days of For Tomorrow, I would work at night,
Mhm.
like, I'd work on my website at night after they were sleeping, or if I had to take some kind of webinar, I would do it at night when they were sleeping, or during nap time. They used to nap at that time, so during nap time or something like that. Now they're a little older, so they can kind of understand if I say something like, I need 30 minutes
Mhm.
to answer emails, right? Like, they get it. So, those kind of things, I think that we're blessed that I'm able to work from home and be with them, which is really important to me, and create my own work schedule, right?
Mhm.
Like, those are those kind of privileges that people don't talk about. Like, that's definitely a privilege that I have, that I'm able to do that and create my work schedule in a way that works for me.
Yeah.
Um, and then otherwise with For Tomorrow and anything else that I do freelance wise, I know what my capacity is.
Mm.
So I won't take on too many freelance clients at the same time. So if I have to tell someone no, then I have to tell I got really comfortable with telling people no, which is hard for me.
Mm.
Uh, but telling people no it became a necessity because there's only one of me,
Mhm.
right? And me and my family, I have to be well enough to
Yeah.
take care of my family.
Yeah.
So I'm like hyper aware, like all my workaholic stuff before when I was younger that would literally make me physically ill. Uh,
Mhm.
I can't, I am hyper aware of that works against me, right? And that then works against the well-being of my family. So that's always first. So yeah, I tell, if I have to tell someone no, then I tell someone no. I have very set hours for meetings, set hours and set days for
Yeah.
meetings. And, if I have to do a little work on the weekends, I do it. Sometimes a lot of work on the weekends, and I do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The girls come with me to pack orders and ship them, and I've been dragging them to the post office since they were babies.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is what it is. We make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy, and there's no, like, to be honest, there's no set schedule aside from the fact that the girls have a set schedule.
Yeah.
Now they're in school, it's a little bit easier because I can work the hours that they're in school, and whatever after school programs they go to, I have those hours to kind of get some work done. But
Yeah.
when they're home, I wanna focus on them,
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah. I really love to see just like how there's no rush. Like getting this feeling of this is what's happening, like this is the work and this is the business, but there's no rush to that. Like what comes first is my family, right? And so I
right.
love that because I feel like you can really apply that to just in general. I think even people that don't have children can build a business around their biggest priorities, right? And not be so rushed. I feel like when you think about business, it's like, okay, how do we grow? How do we get like our first like 100 clients? How do we, and there's all this rush energy and I'm hearing that that's not like the case from you. Like that's
Right, and now that you put it into words like that, I guess I hadn't really thought of it like that, but yeah, that is what it is, and I think that I've also had to come to terms with that because that's not the norm when
Mhm.
you're building a business. It is to grow and scale as fast as possible. However, a friend said to me once, "You can't do everything at the same time," right?
Mhm.
So, for me, in the last couple of years, it's been like, "Look, my kids are really little. They're only little ones, and
Mhm.
I'm growing my family,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm doing now, and in 2, 3 years, they might be able to sit here and do homework on their own or whatever, and I'll be able to get a little more work done, and then that's the reality of my life at that time."
Mhm.
So, maybe it's almost like I don't know what the word is, but just given in to the process,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay with it, I've made peace with that, but that is by no means normal in this
Right.
world.
And
like
it's
at
not
all.
to yeah, and it's not to say that you're not, like, growing your business, like, you are. It's just taking its space, and you're growing your own entrepreneurship, like, skills and everything that you're learning, it just comes with the pace that you are currently like, that's okay. Like, you're just simply okay with it. You're not trying to rush the process, like you said.
I'm not trying to rush the process. I mean, it also the work is what the work is. I know what it you know what I mean? It's like I hire, contractors as needed for the things that I need to hire
Mhm.
contractors for. I do have a schedule, like an email schedule, social media schedule, and things like that. But I also know that I am one person wearing so many hats.
Yeah.
And there's times where one hat takes precedence over the other hat, right?
Mhm.
And I've just had to really come to terms with, you know what? Everyone else is gonna have to wait a day.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much pressure to like 8 a.m., wake up, answer emails. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good in my body.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel good in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. Period.
I work for myself. Like, why would I do that? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like,
I love
um,
it.
and I take on the projects that excite me.
Mhm.
I have the ability to do that. That is a privilege that I have that I worked for,
Yeah.
right? Able to take on the clients that fit my schedule and that I'm excited to work with, to help grow. And as I'm working on for tomorrow, you
Mhm.
know, I don't know. I also have like these bouts of like a lot of energy and a lot
Yeah.
of like creativity. And then I have
Yeah.
times that are more like slower in terms of creativity. So like right now,
Yeah.
like, I've actually learned like for whatever reason, like end of the year, so much creativity, so much like so many ideas, like things are just moving, like just moving.
Yeah.
And
I
the
feel this.
summer, and maybe it's because it's the summer, right? Like
It's
it's just
more
like
relaxed.
yeah. So I plan
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
So I plan now for months in advance and because I feel so creative because I have just all this energy going, and I can do that. Because
Mhm.
I know that there's gonna be times where I'm just kind of like, um, need a little more help, need some
Mhm.
ideas, and I'll have all the work that I did months ago when I really was just it was just like oozing out of me. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. No, I feel totally like I for some reason this end of the year period, this last quarter, there's just been so much. I think it's because there's this, where the end of the year is coming, we're preparing for next year, so we're like thinking about, okay, what it's a new year, and I think everyone gets really energized around the idea of having a new year, starting new ideas, creating new ideas, and so I totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Also for like a CPG brand, like a product-based business, it's the Super Bowl, right? Like it is the Super Bowl. Like you better be on it. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it's just you it's so busy, even if you weren't feeling super up to it, like you kind of don't have a choice. Like this is
Mhm.
like I said, it's the Super Bowl, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday season. Like it is busy time. And I mean, some brands even launched holiday campaigns in October, right? October
Mhm.
15th, I noticed so many brands launched holidays. It's just across the board. Everyone, I think, is kind of like just really like on it extra. Because
Yeah.
it's exciting, fun time.
Yeah,
Q4 is a big deal for
for
these
brands.
businesses. Yeah, yeah.
So let's go back to a little bit about your trajectory because you had talked about transitioning from interior design role to a different role to then now freelance. So when did For Tomorrow start to bubble up for you? And when that happened, like what was the first step that you took towards making that a reality?
So, I mean, the first time I wanted to start a nail care brand was years before I started For Tomorrow. So this was like when I first started social work. I had just graduated social work school, and I was reading about this brand called Deborah Lipman, which is like this celebrity nail artist who started her line. And I was like, "What? You can start your own nail brand? Regular people can do this? This is awesome." And I remember I even asked around, like in my community, like, "Does anyone know how I can do this thing? I want to start this brand. I have this idea. I want to do it." And everyone was like, "No, or you have to find a chemist." And I was like, "Okay, well then how do I find a chemist?" And this is like days pre-Google, right? So like I was like, "Okay, never
This
mind."
is
Like
pre-Google days?
this is like a beginning of Google. Like Google,
Oh.
I got my first Google email.
Oh
You know
my
what I
god,
mean?
girl, this
Like
is, like,
a
going
long
back,
time ago. It's a
yeah,
long time ago.
1995 type stuff.
Oh no, I didn't get Google till like after college. Maybe I was late to the Google game. I
I
don't know.
was like, "Wait, like, Google started in
Oh
1995,
man.
bro."
Yeah. What was Google called first? It had another name, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, but for maybe a year until it launched as Google. Yeah.
That's what I remember, but it wasn't the 90s. It was
Or
anyway,
are you talking about Bing? Maybe Bing?
I know nothing,
Or
but
Yahoo?
you
Yahoo.
know, like early Google days. Like it was like, how do I find information?
Oh,
Like
okay, I see, yeah,
uh,
the early
uh
2000s.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I had just graduated, I had a new job, a new career, so I focused on that. And then I kind of came back to it when I got pregnant. Had a
Mhm,
really high risk pregnancy. It was a pretty terrifying time in my life. At the same time, my cousin was diagnosed with breast cancer. So me and her were kind of going through this clean beauty, clean living, I should say, journey, right? Where we were like learning about ingredients, learning about our cleaning products, our beauty products, the things, the foods that we eat. And we just kind of like overhauled our life. And I was working in social media at the time, and I was kind of like, well, how do I share this with people? Like going back to like my therapeutic, like social work roots, right? Where I'm like,
mhm,
I care about the community. I want like everyone to be as healthy as possible.
mhm.
Uh, because it deeply affects your well-being, right? So I'm like thinking of ways to share that information. And this was 2018, and the clean beauty space was super different then. You really didn't see people of color in the clean beauty space at all, and people really didn't know about it. Like it felt like this very elite world for people who are very affluent. Didn't feel like it was for regular people or women of color. And one of the most like the scariest stats that I learned was that like black and brown women are about 9 times more likely to use a product with toxic ingredients than white women.
Mm,
And that blew me away.
yeah,
Like, that blew me away. I was like, "This is absolutely, like, unacceptable. This is
right.
gonna be my lane of activism, like, this is, like, just not it." So I kind of used that to fuel my idea, and I played around with a couple of different ideas, like, thinking of what the actual, like, product would be, and I was like, well, I was listening to a podcast with Marie Forleo, actually, and she said, "Start with what you know." And I was
Mm,
like, "Oh, I know nails. I've been doing nails with my family my whole life. I love it. I wanted to do it years ago."
mhm,
So I just did like massive amounts of research online. At this point, I had already given birth. I was on maternity leave. I was like sitting on my sofa, breastfeeding all day.
yeah,
And I just sat there and did all this research, reached out to people, got samples, and it kind of like went from there.
yeah,
It's not easy because when you are no one and you have no brand and you do not come from the beauty world, like my background is not in beauty, um, they don't necessarily want to take a chance on you. They
mhm.
kind of,
And when you say they, like,
like
who's they?
the vendors, the
Oh,
manufacturers, chemists, vendors across the board were like, no, no.
really?
They said call back when you're bigger, you know.
Oh,
And that's,
that
I mean,
I mean, that's so wild because I would have never thought about that as a barrier, to I'm thinking, "Oh, you find a chemist, and then I guess you go from creating your first sample, right? But then you need, like you said, you need the suppliers and vendors and manufacturers
Right,
all.
you need all of it, you need all of it. You need someone to supply your boxes, you need someone to sell you the bottle, the brush, the cap, like every piece, right?
Yeah.
To fill it for you, to
Yeah.
decorate your bottle like how you want it. Like there's a lot of moving pieces. So I understand from their end in that they work on commission and they don't wanna waste their time with someone that they don't think is serious. I get that
Mm,
because I also worked in that world when I worked in interior design, in that sales world. So I understand the thinking behind it. But obviously, just because 'cause you're new doesn't mean you're not serious. It Yeah, so I it took some time to find somebody who was open to working with me. This is
wow.
also okay, so it's 20 I was pregnant 2018, so let's say this is 2019, right? I'm
Yeah.
like all year spending trying to find someone to work with me. And then I did, and then we had COVID,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
it was really like the majority of this process that you would usually like go to trade shows and meet people in person. I really couldn't do because I was breastfeeding and I needed to be home. Like it was a little difficult for me to
Yeah.
try. I was also like nervous about traveling without the girls. So like
Yeah.
I didn't really travel 2018,
Mhm.
2019, any trade shows. And then
Yeah.
2020, it was like, can't go nowhere. There's no trade shows, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no meeting in person. And that's where you would go to, if there's somebody listening that like wants to start a brand, like go to a trade show. They need to
Mm.
need to see that you're professional and they need to see that you're serious about this business,
And
and that you know what you want, that you're not wasting their time.
mm, and by the time that you go to a trade show, because I'm just curious about the process of like when you did find someone that was willing to work with you, and was that someone that was willing to do everything from the bottle to the like all the individual pieces?
Yeah, some places do. So this person was able to connect me with everyone.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was really helpful
Yeah.
at that time. That was, the best that I can find and the best I could do. And I was like, we're gonna move forward because it is what it is. It's not like I could go to a trade show and compare 10 different vendors,
Mm,
compare on like anything. Like it was kind of if I wanted to start, I needed to start. And that's how I thought about it. I'm like, well, if I'm gonna start this, we're gonna do a test run. We're gonna see how this works. We're gonna see how this sells, and we'll move forward from there.
mhm. And so they said yes to working with you. You developed your first sample. I'm curious about the trade show. So is that something that comes before or after your first sample?
It depends on what you need. So a
Mm,
trade show, you can do different things at a trade show. You can go meet packaging people. You can
mhm,
go meet manufacturers. You can go meet other people in the industry that you might need to help. I mean, there's like these major marketing companies, PR agencies that show at trade shows also. Um,
mhm.
there's even you can go to trade shows and buy a specific ingredient, like one little ingredient. You can go to a trade show and buy machinery. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, whatever you need, whatever process you need. Some people start their own, if you were going to start your own manufacturing facility, you would need to buy specific equipment. So
wow.
they
But
sell that too.
I imagine that's like for like scaling, right? Like you're ready to scale, you need a machine to
To be honest, scaling would be not needing a machine. Like you don't want to be filling on your own.
right.
Yeah, they're called a contract manufacturer. You want a manufacturer to do that for you.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's like the founder, especially for these indie brands, like people like myself, right? We take everything on, and it's nice in the beginning. It's exciting in the beginning, but there's so many moving pieces that's why you move your products to a warehouse. You get a contract manufacturer to fill it for you. It's like your time could be better used with growing your business, with any other piece of your business that is not like this physical thing creating the actual product. Does that
Mm,
make sense?
yeah, yeah. That's so interesting because I think when it comes to product, especially within products that that we use every day, like soaps or like shampoos and things like that. Although, like, for the most part, regular consumers have can go to Target and like they don't think about the process, right? Of like how where did this product come from? Like how
Or
did
what's in it,
what's
right?
in it? And what I love about and this is why, because when you told me this statistic about women of color and beauty brands having toxic chemicals and mostly being used by women of color, black and brown women, I was like, one, not surprised, but also why, like, I never went to salons and I rarely bought any nail polish, and I don't like I like buy I try to buy the things that feel good but are not like super like expensive. But how did you think about marketing and messaging? And I know you have background in that, so like what was sort of like your process for building this out, creating the product, and then putting in your creativity, but then also managing the hat of like marketing and like messaging, especially
Well,
since you were like you were by yourself doing this, I feel.
yeah. So, I mean, luckily, my husband also works in branding, right? So
Mhm, yeah.
we worked on it together. We worked on the brand together. And actually, he even played a big role in the name. Like,
Mhm,
the name I had come up with was Tomorrow, and he was like, "What about for tomorrow?" Like,
mhm,
it's for tomorrow.
yeah,
As much as we're solo founders, I always like to tell this to people, we don't do anything by ourselves.
yeah,
Like, we don't do anything. I don't parent by myself. As much as we do the day to day, this is our idea and we're growing this thing and we're the founder and we're the CEO and all this stuff. Like, I don't really think that anyone can really do anything by themselves, because even you need a manufacturer, like you need a vendor, you need a designer, you need all these other people and ideas and things like that to create the ecosystem of your brand and all this kind of stuff. But for I think your question was like, how did I manage the marketing, or were you asking like how I built the initial idea of the brand, like how it looks today?
yeah. Like, I mean, with branding and like marketing, because I feel like those are separate from the building out of the product, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so what was that process like for you? Was it something that was in parallel as you were building out your
Yeah.
first product? Okay.
Yeah, so it was definitely happening at the same time, and I always, and this is even for like my freelance clients, I always start with a competitive analysis. Like, I need to see, and anyone, right, building something needs to know what's going on in that world, in that niche, right? So
Mhm.
I did a lot of, and I mean, I love nails, so a lot of it I knew already,
Yeah.
but I did just a ton of research and I had a competitive analysis that's like with naming, with taglines, their copy, their packaging, right? Like how, because you want to differentiate. So you
Mhm.
have to start with a competitive analysis to really know where the space is and how you can be different. Uh,
Mhm.
there's, I mean, the conversation is always that there's so many beauty brands, right? So it's like, how do you stand out in the world? How do
Mhm.
you stand out on a shelf? Why would anybody buy you over that one?
Mhm.
And the truth is that marketing plays a big role in that. Like, there's some people that care a lot about packaging and the beauty and feeling like the words and the copy is like really speaking to them and that
Mhm.
something was like created for them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I started like that, and I have an entire kind of like brand strategy
Mhm.
that I put together, a lot of storming sessions on storytelling and on the visuals. And I love design. I love aesthetics. I love art. So I had a lot of mood boards going and inspiration that way. And the thing is, it continues to evolve.
Mm.
You know, the
Yeah.
brand when it started doesn't. The logo's the same, but I wouldn't say that it feels the same as when it
Mhm.
started.
Yeah.
uh, Things evolve, and I think it's important to always like innovate and be, trying new cool things. Like, that's what's exciting about being an indie brand, right? Like you can kind of do what you want. Like you can kind of play around and have fun and explore, right? And if
Mhm.
something doesn't work, it's okay. Just try something else. So I think that's the part that I like with brand building, where it's like I can try this style of photography and see if it works. I can try this style of designing my emails and see if that works, what resonates with people, all while maintaining, the core brand,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's not like, you just throw something and see what sticks. Like there's a core brand with a core message, and that has been the same since the beginning.
Mhm.
And that takes work. That takes a lot of work. And I think you have to start with the foundation, or
Mhm.
it's like your work can flip-flop. I don't know if that's
Mhm.
the right way of saying it. Like, it's like almost shaky, right? It's like when you build a house, you need a strong foundation. If you have
Mhm.
a crack in your foundation, you gotta tear that house down and start again.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You have to do that hard work in the beginning to be able to move forward. And you can always tweak and grow and innovate in the future as you go, but
Mhm.
your North Star is always your North Star, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
my thing is always like, these colors are rooted in your well-being. Like, that
Mhm.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how I say it, right? Like,
Mm.
color your mood is how I say it right now in the last month, but
Yeah.
that can change, that it can have there's tons of different ways of saying that and conveying that information, but the idea is still the same. The brand at its core is
Mhm.
still the same, and
Yeah.
that's, I think, so important, and I had a lot of fun doing that. I
Yeah.
love the
Was that
early
all by yourself? What did support look like for you during that time? Because that feels like a lot to think about as a
Oh, I mean, it took 2 years. It
yeah.
took 2 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
it took 2 years. Like, it's not a quick process.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a set timeline on when I needed to launch,
Mhm.
right? There's people that have we're launching January 5th of whatever, and you have to have it ready. And
Yeah.
some people hire an agency, and I would love in the future to be able to work with an agency and continue to evolve the brand.
Yeah.
But me and my husband did a lot of the work at home. So like I would work on these mood boards, and he'd go in the office and come home and have them printed for me. So we put them on the wall and
Yeah.
sit with it.
Yeah.
You have to live with it almost. Like you
Yeah.
have to say, like, does this feel like the brand? Is it authentic?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? Is it
Yeah.
authentic? Um, does this feel like something, this creation, because you're creating, it's like you're birthing a new baby, right? Does this feel like a creation that you want to live with? Like
Mm.
you. And at that time, I really wanted to create a brand that felt like me.
Mhm.
And eventually the brand grows beyond me, right? As I
Yeah.
hire employees, as my team grows, as the business grows, like it becomes way bigger than just me. But when I was building that foundation, it was like something that was really important to me, really, really. I wanted it to feel like super authentic because I started the business because of this personal experience that I had.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to feel really like organic and just clean and beautiful and showcase nails in a way that was elevated.
Mhm.
Like, at that time, I don't think that there were that many brands that were doing that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I see that in the aesthetics. I was just listening to a podcast on aesthetic intelligence,
Oh,
and I'll definitely send it to you. I think you would love it because it's a strategy podcast on how to use aesthetic intelligence to build your brand, to elevate your brand.
I would definitely
And
listen to that.
yeah, and it is truly we see it in brands like Apple, right? Like with Steve Jobs, like there needed to be functionality if in what they were building with the technology that they were building, but his aesthetic was very implemented into the brand as well. And it was a really interesting podcast on how to incorporate, but I feel like that is not only is it super elevated, but it's also actually clean. It's also actually
Mhm.
non-toxic. There's other nail polishes that I used to use like OPI, but I never felt called to that brand. I don't know. It was just a brand that was available.
Mhm.
But I feel with you, like with brand with For Tomorrow, like there's something about the brand itself that calls to you, like it's very soothing, this is clean, and bonus, it's founded by a woman of color, right? And it's like for
Mhm.
women of color. And
Mhm.
it's because of the story and the statistics that you shared.
Yeah.
So you've done a really good job at really messaging that and putting that into the brand and putting that out there, which is what makes it stand out and really shine. And I want to pivot a little bit into the mentions that you've had in like really awesome magazines like Allure. I remember the first time you went into Allure, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Maya, that's amazing," and I obviously not surprised because like the way you built the brand, and I'm glad that you said like even though you and your husband did it together, like you guys really took the time to think through it, right? And to see it, to create like what this the energy, the mood, like what is it, what do we want to convey? And it's definitely paid off, right? And you were recently in Good Morning America. Like
Yeah.
it was so awesome to
That
see.
was awesome. That was awesome.
It was. So, what were the things that you felt like brought you to these types of honorable mentions and like this sort of visibility? And then how has it changed your brand and like your business afterwards?
So it's a couple different things. You have to do that foundational work, right? You have to have a strong brand. That's called having a strong brand, right? So that when an editor looks at your brand, they're intrigued, they're interested, they take you seriously. I mean, obviously, if you're a business owner, you're serious, but I think aesthetics says a lot, right? And they want to be associated with you, right? Like they want to. Maybe that's not the best way of saying it, but they want to be associated with beautiful brands.
Mhm.
Magazines are about, I mean, these are beauty magazines, right? So they want to showcase the best new brands that are out there. They're really trend forecasting, the trendsetters, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have to do that work and make them that's what gets them excited. If you have something beautiful, they're like, "Oh, what's that? Let me learn more."
Mhm.
Right? So yeah, like my brand foundation might have a strong brand.
Mhm.
So that absolutely helps. That is everything. Like
Mhm.
you don't have that, number one thing you should work on, right?
Yeah. And I think
uh,
too for beauty brands, right? Like
I mean,
it's
absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
yeah. If you the point is to be on somebody's shelf, right? Like,
Mhm.
so and people want something that looks beautiful and something that's effective. If effectiveness in your formula is actually number one.
Mhm.
Uh, but a strong brand will get you far. Will
Okay.
get you will get you far. So, like gorgeous photography, a beautiful website, like all of that really deeply, truly matters to the growth of your brand. Luckily, I love that. So I had no problem spending a
Yeah.
lot of time working on that.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was prepping to launch in 2020 when all of the kind of paywalls were down for a lot of these online classes. So I took every online class that I could possibly take during 2020, during COVID. And when I tell you literally if I couldn't take it on the day it was live, like I would record it and save it and watch it when I could, right? Because
Mhm.
everything, like my kids were little, signed up for everything that I could. I learned so much. And a lot of that was PR,
Mm.
how to manage your PR. So I learned about like creating your brand deck and how to do that. How to literally cold pitch editors. And that's what I did. I cold
Mhm.
pitch.
Yeah. That's
Cold pitch. I
amazing.
mean, some days you sit down and you send 50 emails a day. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like I cold pitched. And that's how I built relationships. And that's how I learned about other opportunities. And that's how it's grown.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I feel like, business in general, like PR is something we don't talk up a lot about. I think just because there's a lot of other focus on brands and brand building and like getting the brand strategy right. Which in your case, I feel like you have a natural and strong skill already in branding and marketing. Um, and I love that you were self-aware around, okay, that's a strong skill that I have now. Like, how can we elevate that further into PR? And so that's amazing. Just taking PR classes online. Were a lot of them for free, or was it
They
some?
were all free. They were all free.
Yeah.
Everything was free in 2020. Like, even these really expensive, I don't know, like trade shows, but conferences, these
Mhm.
really expensive conferences that I would not have been able to attend in person
Mm.
anyway, were, they had them virtual. So I
Yeah.
would sit and watch the whole thing and learn and take notes and then do it. You know what I mean? It's not like I just watched it and moved on. Like, I watched it, I learned, I did this, and I did the steps. I did it and it worked.
Yeah.
So
That's
super thankful for all
incredible.
those people.
That's so
Yeah.
amazing. I feel like so many people can learn from that, can learn from, especially because you're a product-based business, right? PR, like, how can you incorporate PR into your strategy? How much do you need to learn about PR? So I'm glad that you mentioned all of that because, um, yeah, it's not something that I think it's easily accessible to know in terms of how to grow your business and how to get visibility out there for your brand.
Right. So this was in 2020. That's what I did then. It changes just like social changes all the time. So now there's a ton of kind of different tactics you can do to get PR, which include like affiliate marketing and things like that,
Mhm.
that are like super important for based businesses
Yeah.
to secure that PR. So it's also important to always stay on top of whatever the trend is, whatever's going on in the industry. So you can also use that to stay top of mind with your contacts.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Maya, for sharing that knowledge because I think it's gold like that. And I feel a lot of people don't know. Like, I didn't know that, but that's amazing. And okay, so wrapping up, if you were a mentor for anyone who was pursuing this this career to create a beauty brand,
Mhm.
what would you make sure that they learn and that they understand first?
That's such a big question. Awesome question. The first thing, there's so many things I was gonna say that it's super hard. It's so hard. It's like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that first. But it's so hard. I mean, it's so hard. I think that working for yourself in any capacity,
Mhm,
you have to work on yourself as a human, right? So all of your triggers are going to come up when you work for yourself. All of your everything is relational, right? Like,
mhm,
everything is almost like a mirror of the things we have to work on. And those things really show up, like hyper show up when you're working um
mm,
for yourself. So there's so much more pressure.
yeah,
Right. There's so much more pressure. I would say, building a strong brand is incredibly important. And the truth is that, like, capital is incredibly important.
mm,
So how are you gonna fund this business?
mhm,
Real question. Like, how? What's the plan?
yeah, yeah,
Right? Have a plan. How
mm,
are you gonna fund this business now? How are you planning on funding this business in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years?
mhm,
What is super, super, super important, because everything can change. Everything does change, right? You have to be flexible.
mhm,
You have to be hyper flexible, super flexible, and being okay with it,
yeah,
knowing that you have to have that faith in yourself, that you can make it, that
mhm,
you'll make the right decisions, and that you will survive and be okay if you make the wrong decision in
mm,
that moment.
mm,
Wrong, I say, but
mm,
everything kind of is a journey, right? Leading you to where you have to be. So
yeah,
it might feel wrong, but maybe it's not so wrong.
yeah.
But yeah, like me in the beginning, I had a trademark issue. I had a completely different name for my business, and I had to change it.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Because you had to.
and and that didn't feel good, but I love the brand that I have built.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
well, just an example.
yeah.
That. different for everyone. But I think that being okay with things not looking exactly how you want them to look in your mind in the beginning is important, right? Like things evolve and that's okay.
I love the overall message of simply taking your time, you know?
I think taking your time and making sure that it feels authentic, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like you and some people work great on deadlines. I am not one of those people. I you know, if
Yeah.
something feels right, I'm gonna move forward very quickly,
Mhm.
right? Like I know what works for me.
Yeah.
Some people need those deadlines because they're for whatever reason, they need the deadlines. It makes them feel good. And, maybe they need help making that decision and the deadline helps them with that.
Mhm.
I've met some people that are like that, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
I think do what feels good for you. I would say the funding really is incredibly important.
Yeah.
It's not a super sexy like thing like brand building and beauty and packaging and things like that, but like that is what funds all the super sexy stuff that
Mhm.
everyone loves and enjoys.
Mhm.
Uh, Formulation takes an incredibly long time.
Mhm.
So like skincare brands and things like that. So, um, I wouldn't necessarily rush the process. Do what feels good. I think
Mhm.
to be honest, if I was somebody's mentor, like I would ask them a lot of questions,
Mhm.
right? Really get a feel for like where they're at, what they're building, why.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, the why is super important. Like, why? Because when everything gets crazy and like inevitable problems happen, like you have to go back to your why. Why am I doing this?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right? Like, why am I doing this?
That's like your grounding force.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad that we finally got to do this, and I learned each time I talk with you, I learn so much more.
Hey.
If people are curious about you and like to get to know more about For Tomorrow
Mm.
and you, where can people find you? What is the best way to see what you're up to?
So we are fortomorrow.co on all social media. So that's FORTMRW.co. And our website is the same, fortomorrow.co.
Nice. Check it
You can all get
out.
yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it's super beautiful, and I'm a huge ambassador of it, like, I love it. I just had it with me, I went to put it back. I have a little, like, box where I have all my little nail polishes in
Oh,
there.
cute.
Yeah,
Love it.
so, um, I'm gonna go bring it. Hold on, hold on.
Okay.
So, here are all of the ones that I have, and so you could I am a total like, I'm
Oh my
telling you,
goodness.
I'm
I
telling
think it's so pretty. I love,
you guys gotta get this is one of my favorite ones. So if you're watching
wow.
this on YouTube, I'm showing the Four Clouds one. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful brand. And if you are also thinking about starting your own beauty brand, starting your own business, like I hope that this episode was helpful. And if you have any questions, come back, let us know. We're here, and Maya is a great resource. So please come check her out. Thank you so much, Maya. This was so
Thank
wonderful.
you for asking.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Boss Coaching podcast. Remember to come on over to the beabosscoaching.com and book your free discovery call where you can learn more about coaching with me, what it takes to start a business and grow the skills while growing your business at the same time. I'm excited to learn more from you. Remember to sign up to our newsletter and come back every Monday and Friday for new episodes.